Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I'm going to talk about the human speech organ, about the part and function of the human speech organ itself. There are 25 kinds of human speech organ. Some of them are primary important or have a very primary function to the production of the human speech organ, but some of them are secondary primary function of the human speech organ. The first one is lung, trachea, windpipe or windpipe, larynx, vocal cord, cricoid, thyroid, erythenoid, wall of pharynx, epiglottis, root of the tongue, dorsums or back of the tongue, mediums or middle of the tongue, lamina or blade of the tongue. And apex, uvula, velum, hard palate or palatum, alveolar or alveolum, upper teeth, lower teeth, upper lip, lower lip, mouth, oral cavity or mouth cavity, and nose cavity. So this is the human speech organ. Here above the trachea we're going to have larynx. Larynx is the box of voice because inside the larynx you're going to find vocal cord that covered by the cartilages, which is thyroid, cricoid, and erythenoid. Further, we're going to discuss it on the next slide. And then after the vocal cord, we have epiglottis. Epiglottis is the gate of pharynx and larynx. So when you chew the food here, the epiglottis is going to close the larynx or the trachea here. So the food is going to go to pharynx, go to esophagus, and go to your stomach. And after the epiglottis, you are going to find the oral cavity. On oral cavity, you are going to have tongue, the teeth, and then the lips, hard palate, soft palate, uvula, and after that when the uvula it's going to move up and down. When it down, then the air that come to the trachea or the larynx is going to go to the nasal cavity. This one is the nasal cavity. Nasal cavity, it's going to produce the nasal sound, while the oral cavity, it's going to produce the oral sound. So this is what it called as lungs. Lungs is the lowest part of the human speech organ, because it inside the body of the human, and it a down part or the lower part of the human body. We have two lungs, which is right and left. Okay, so this is the human lung. Human lung has the first function is respiratory. Respiratory means the breathing activity of the human, putting the oxygens and exhale, inhaling the oxygens and exhaling the carbon dioxide. So that the first function, respiratory, and the second function is making a sound or doing the phonation, because by the lung that is pump exhaling, it's going to produce the sound. So the sound, the air, it's going to inhale through the lung and then exhale also from outside the lung. Okay, so it should be, and it have to be very normal. Then this is what it's called as bronchus. Bronchus. After the bronchus, we have here trachea, or the windpipe of the larynx. Okay, so the lungs, the bronchus, and the trachea. After the trachea, we have what it's called as larynx. Larynx is the box or the voice box. Why does it call as the voice box? Because larynx has three component that is very important in phonation, or making the sound, or doing the articulation. The first one is cartilages. Cartilages atau tulang rawan. There are three cartilages in larynx. The first one is Erythenoid. Erythenoid is supporting by the cricoid. The cricoid, so Arytenoid is in the shape of pyramid. A couple of cartilage in the shape of pyramid, while cricoid is the shape of oral that support the Arytenoid. So the position is under the Arytenoid. Arytenoid is behind the vocal cord. On the front of the vocal cord, you're going to have thyroid, or also the cartilages. Thyroid, for the man, it's called as Adam apple because it's bigger than a woman and it's see able clearly. The second one is glottis. Glottis consists of muscle. The muscle is the muscle of the vocal cord. Ya. Jadi otot dari pita suara. So the muscle of the vocal cord, it should be strong enough to vibrate or to move the vocal cord. Okay. And then the third is the vocal cord itself. Vocal cord is very thin and breakable. That's why it is covered by the cartilages. And it should have a strong muscle to make a movement of open and closed, open and narrowed, or even doing a vibration. So this is larynx. Larynx is the voice box, just I have already told you. This is the trachea. Under the trachea, you're going to find the bronchus, just like what I showed you before the slide. So this is the trachea. Under the trachea, you're going to have bronchus. Under the bronchus, you're going to have the lung. And this is what it called as larynx, or the voice box itself. This is the thyroid. Thyroid is the cartilage in front of the vocal cord. So behind this, you're going to have the vocal cord. So thyroid is in front, the cartilage that in front of the vocal cord. Okay, this one. On the man, it's called as Adam apple. And then cricoid is the circle shape or oral shape under the Arytenoid. Okay, Arytenoid is consists of couple that support by the cricoid. Ya, so di atas cricoid ini ada Arytenoid. Ya, Arytenoid letaknya behind the vocal cord. And then this is what it's called as Erythenoid. See, Erythenoid is a couple. Erythenoid is supporting the vocal cord. So Erythenoid is beside the vocal cord. It's supporting by the cricoid. Okay, and supporting also by the Adam apple. So this vocal cord is supporting by 3 cartilages atau 3 tulang rawan. This is what it called as the vocal cord, and the vocal cord is covered by the cartilages, support by the cartilages, and support also by the muscle, or what it called as glottis. So this is our glottis. As you can see, there are 3 positions of glottis. The first one is closed, second one is open, and the third one is half closed. So every position it's going to have a different sound. About the sound, we're going to explain it on the next slide. So when the glottis is moving, so we make these 4 type of movement. The first one is open wide. The open wide means that the glottis is not making any sound, or the vocal cord is not producing the sound, so it has the normal breathing. But when the second movement it happens, then the glottis or the vocal cord is making the voiceless movement. Voiceless movements is mostly are consonants. Okay, so consonants, voiceless or unvoiced, it's making by the sound half open. Okay, this is half open. The third movement is half closed. When the position is in a half closed, then it making the sound of voice. Okay, it could be voice, consonant, and also vowel. All are voice. Half closed, and then the vibration is stronger. While the position of half open, the vibration is weak. On the position of open, the vibration is known. And then the fourth position is the position of closed. Okay, when you have the position of closed, then you are going to have the position of glottal sound or glottal consonants like something like that, like in mountain. Okay, hunter. Okay, it's only happen in American. Okay, we're going to discuss this further later on suprasegmental features. Okay, or also in neurotranscription phonetic. This is the soft palate or phylum. Soft palate is connected or joined with the juvula. Soft palate together with juvula, it's going to move upward to make the sound of oral sound. When it go upward, then the air that go from the lung come from the lung through the pharynx, it's going to come out through the oral cavity. That's why if the air is held on the oral, then it's going to make the oral sound. But if the soft palate together with juvula on the positions of downward, then the air that come from the larynx, it's going to come out through the nasal cavity, and when there is a halt or articulation on the nasal cavity, then it's going to form a nasal sound. So soft palate, it's called as an active articulator because it's moving upward and downward. It actively moving, and the changing of the upward and forward of the phylum and soft palate, it's going to change or vary kind of the sound, oral sound or nasal sound. Okay, the next is juvula or uvula. Juvula or uvula. Juvula is connecting to the soft palate. The position is under the soft palate, and it's moving based on the movement of soft palate. So the juvula is not moving basically, because the one that is moving is soft palate, but because the soft palate is moving, then the juvula is also moving. So the movement of soft palate together with juvula, it's going to vary the sound between oral and nasal. Okay, so this is the soft palate. When the soft palate is making the movement of upward, going to be upward, this thing, then the air flows from the larynx, it's going to block here, and it's not going to the nasal cavity, but it's going through the oral cavity. That's why when the air it's come out through the oral cavity, then it's going to make the sound of oral sound. But when the soft palate is making the movement of downward, so it's going to block the air that come from the larynx, block to the oral cavity, then it's going to go to the nasal cavity. When it's go to the nasal cavity, then it's going to make the sound of nasal sound. Okay, that's why the movement of the soft palate, just what I have already discussed, is very important, because this is one of the necessity of the sound. Hard palate is after the alveolar ridge and also before the hard palate, so before the soft palate, so it is in between the alveolar ridge and hard and soft palate, sorry. So it is easily to touch by using the tip of the tongue. It's very hard and smooth. It's not moving, it's passive. When it touched by the tongue, then it's going to make a variation of oral sound. You see, number 4 is alveolar ridge or alveolums. Okay, you can say it alveolar ridge, alveolar or alveolum. The positions of the alveolar or alveolum is behind the upper teeth, the inside part of the upper teeth, and after the hard palate. So if the tip of the tongue or any part of the tongue touch the part of the alveolar, then it's going to make the alveolar ridge sound. Which one is the alveolar ridge sound? Later we're going to discuss it on a kind of consonant. And the inside gum located on the back part of the upper teeth is also called as passive articulator because it's not moving, it's not active, it's passive. The articulation or the halt that become a phonetic is because the active articulator, which is the tongue, is touching the part of the alveolar ridge. This is the lip or labia. We have upper and lower lips. Upper and lower lips are active articulators because it's moving and the shape that is can change. It's going to variate the vowel. So the shape of the lip, it's going to be very important to variate the kinds of vowel itself. That's why lip it's become important speech organ or important articulator in making the sound. So the tongue, this is the tongue, the human tongue. The human tongue, it's going to divide it into 5 divisions. The first one, the very back row of the tongue, it's called as root of the tongue. Root of the tongue is very near to the soft palate. And then after the root of the tongue, the human will have the back of the tongue. Here is the back of the tongue. And then after the back of the tongue, the human will have the medium of the tongue or middle of the tongue. After the middle of the tongue, the human will have the blade or the side of the tongue, or also called as lamina. This is the blade of the tongue, the blade of the tongue. And then the last, human have apex or the tips of the tongue. Okay, let me repeat it again. Root of the tongue, back of the tongue, medium of the tongue or middle of the tongue, lamina, and apex. Okay, this is the human tongue. Okay, that's all about this human speech organ. See you on the next discussion. See you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.